Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right, guys, welcome back to Building Great Sales Teams. I've got a special one for you guys today, and it's probably someone that you already know and love. And I should have had him on the podcast years ago. I've known Samuel Smith for about 2 years now. You guys know him as the Small Business Surgeon. He's the host of the Small Business Surgeon podcast. Sam's a brilliant consultant with an expertise in building digital infrastructures for offline businesses to bring them to an online world. Brother, I'm not big on opening up with the whole origin story and going through all that, but you have a badass one, I feel like. I mean,
thank you, man.
I feel like you're living, the American dream in the sense of like you came from another country and made your way in the US, you know what I'm saying? And so can you kind of walk us through that a little bit before we get into the juicy stuff?
Man, how do I get over the introduction envy, man? I've got serious intro jealousy on that podcast. But you see, my intro is like 2 years old now, and I'm like, well, damn, Doug, that was really good. That was really good. So
appreciate it.
Man, origin story, dude, I came here at 19. I was a professional drummer, and I was on a dream of being on tour and being this professional musician and touring in America. And, for kids growing up in England, a US tour is the ultimate like measuring stick of whether you're a great musician or not. And as a drummer, I got to hang out with a lot of great musicians. So that was fun. But it gave me this chip on my shoulder that I didn't want to go back home a failure, and so that's what I did. I was drumming and trying to hustle and trying to fill in between contracts, and I could not keep a job. I had itchy feet every time. I was like, man, I can make more money doing this myself. And so like I haven't had a job since I was 23 years old. And so, yeah, man, I don't know where you want to go in this origin story, dude. I've done it. I've done it all and got the scars to prove it. I built a couple of big companies and sold one in my early 30s, and then I lost one in my mid 30s. I did what every guy that has a little bit of success does, and blows the money on stupid stuff. Because again, no mentors, no guidance. Things like Apex did not exist. 10 years ago. And so it was a very different business landscape. What you learned was what you learned. And, it took a lot of failures to figure out what was going to work.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. And that's very similar to my story as well, where I didn't have the guidance or the mentors. And so I did a lot of stupid stuff, you know what I'm saying? And then we found Apex, and we're at a Fly-In Friday. And we all go to this local like jazz bar afterwards, right? And I had heard of you already, like through social media and through the grapevine and everything. Like Sam's a cool guy; he's got an accent, so he's automatically smarter than all of us, right? And so,
is that so?
And so we're all hanging out, we're having a good time, or whatever. And all of a sudden, and I forgot how this even happened, but all of a sudden you're on the drums and you're just going ham. On those drums, and everybody's kind of freaking out. But I think I had listened to your podcast already, so for whatever reason I had already seen one of your sets. I want to say on social media, so I was already like a fan,
Oh, thank you.
And then I think Stuman was there, and he's like, I had no idea Sam played the drums. And I was like, yeah, you don't have any idea. Like I've seen a bunch of his sets already. He's a badass.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that he had said that, man. And the reason I played the drums there that night was, if you remember, a few guys got up on stage and sang, and they were hazing the new executives, and it was my turn to be hazed. And they said, well, what song do you want to sing? And I said, well, I'd rather just play the drums.
Oh, that's right.
And they looked at me like, what? And I said, no, I'd be more comfortable. Why don't you just haze me on the drum set? And then they threw out Mr. Brightside like I wouldn't be able to do it. And man, that was one of my show pieces in our show. So I just sat down. the look on the musicians' faces when I started the beat and it was in time, and then they just started grinning because they knew it was on, and we had a blast, man. I would have stayed on that stage all night though. That's really what I love to do is performing on stage. I just, that drummer money just isn't there.
No, it was an awesome moment. I feel like that was like, as far as our group was concerned, that was your like coming out moment. Like everybody knew who Sam was after that.
No kidding. That's awesome, man. I love that. Because of course I was just up there bashing away, having a blast, And
then, I would say in the year following, your media company really took off after that, right? And then it was MDM. And so like we were all using you for our production and stuff like that. So it really took off after that. But, what I want to ask you about the business that you sold, what was that business and how were you able to sell it, and kind of, maybe extract a couple of lessons that you learned through that process?
So that was a car dealership, believe it or not.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so
I know you've done real estate too. You've had a media company.
Well, everything I've done has been an evolution of the last thing. So I've never stopped doing real estate. Real estate is not something I have done. It's something I do. I just don't do it like, other than I cruise around and I find deals, and the deal of the century comes along a couple of times a week. And some of them I'll get involved in, some of them I'll pass off. But like real estate's something I always keep my eyes open for. It's just not my main focus. And I'd been driving past this rundown, derelict car dealership on my way to work for months. Well, one day there was a for sale by owner sign in the front of it. And I thought, well, shit, let me go do this, because I was looking at it as a commercial flip. I wasn't looking at it as a car dealership. But I grew up in a shop, and I just had a wild hair, and I bought this place to renovate it and flip it. As I'm renovating it, I'm like, well, you know what? I like cars. What could possibly go wrong? And so, so I found out. I did. I used the scientific method of fuck around and find out. And I found out. And I built a great little car dealership. We had it for about 3 years. And the problem I had with it was, I hadn't learned proper delegation. And I was still very much to the fact that, I can do this, only I can do it. It's got to go through me and everything. I was the bottleneck.
Classic.
And, when I sold it, it was to a group of very excited young men that wanted to come in and build their own car dealership. And I'd got as far as operating procedures. I mean, we had a solid book of operating procedures of how to buy cars, of how to bid them, like all our sources, where we would get them from and everything. And, they took all that work and tossed it out the window. And I didn't sell the property, I sold the business. And so within 18 months, they had skipped out on rent and jumped out. And that was that. And so I went back in there and put a new lick of paint on it and take their sign down and clear their shit out, and was going to, lease it again. And a developer offered me a significant amount of money, quite a lot more than I paid for the lot and had in it. And my original plan was to flip it anyway. And so I sold it back to the developer at that point. But, in selling the business, man, I was just disappointed that they didn't do the work. They didn't do what was written down. I think a lot of people see businesses and they're like, oh man, this will be turnkey. This will be easy. I know what I'm doing. And then they came in and just ripped up the whole playbook, thinking they were going to, just have some magic. I mean, I don't know, like buy here, pay here lots have a specific customer demographic that you'll be working in, whether you like it or not. Right? You have to learn to understand those customers, and they will take advantage of you at every opportunity. And so there's a very fine balance, because I don't want to take advantage of them. I would get in trouble with my bank rep for writing loans at 15% and not writing them at 24. I think the highest legal limit.
Max.
It was 20.
Yeah, it was 23.99.
It was something. I was licensed.
I only know that because I took those loans as a kid.
Well, I refused. I'm like, no, I'm not selling somebody a $10,000 car at 20% interest. And I think that was a big lesson for me, in me thinking that everybody, was a stand-up person and everybody would
Right.
pay their bills on time and stuff. And in reality, you can't take somebody's car away from them. They'll go out of their way to hide it, because that car is how they get their groceries. It's how they pick up their kids. It's how they get to work. And it's the last thing they want to lose. And so I learned a lot about fraud and about credit and about character and about bounce checks and about repossessions. But most importantly, I learned how to sell. I learned how to establish relationships, and that was my very, very first time doing the likable, attractive character. And at that point in time, I had no idea what it was, but we would go on social media and we would post about our cars and we would talk about our day, and we would post videos from the shop and we'd post videos from the auction, and like years before like it was popular. But it's how we generated like interest in the cars, and people would see our social media and they'd come buy from us because they'd seen us on Facebook. And I'm like, wow, this is this. And then the Google My Business too, building that up. And it broke my heart when I handed the company off and I'd sold it. They came in, they rebranded it, and they didn't do anything in the playbook that we'd written down. So I keep thinking I'll buy another car lot at one point when I'm ready to retire and just flip cars for fun, because like once you've got that racing blood in you and you've worked on cars and stuff, it never goes away. I mean, I look at my knuckles and they're just covered in scars from doing stuff that I love to do, So, but
no, I couldn't agree more. I think part of me still feels like one day I'll have a sales team again. One day I'll go back to that life.
It's so different now, because you and I do very similar things in slightly different niches. But I think the hardest challenge for me in getting where I've gone is that, before I let go of where I'm at, I had a very comfortable 250-ish average every year.
Right.
And I want to get to the 7-figure teams again. And I had that with my supplement company, my online brands, and that's a whole other story. But I know it's feasible. I know it's doable. I know I can do it. So I let go of the safety and comfort of that, 2 to 250 a year to go all in on this. My goal is 3 million a year in revenues for my business. And so that's not a huge ask. It's $250,000 a month. And I think we can get to that with focus, probably in the next 120 to 180 days. I mean, that's the goal. But I had to give up the media company. I had to let go of that. And I had to let go of the real estate company I built. And it's a thing to build a big real estate company and then realize you don't like selling houses. That's
I can relate for sure.
Well,
it's tough to make that decision though. And
because you've got that comfort knowing I'm going to sell 2 or 3 houses this month. That's another 20 grand in the bank, and off we go. That's comfortable. And yet, I built, using social media, I built the second largest real estate team in town, and I hated it. I love the video part. I love putting the stuff together, but actually like the physical selling the real estate wasn't for me. But that's very hard to walk away from when you've been doing real estate for 3 or 4 years and everybody on social media knows you're doing real estate. And it's very difficult to walk away from. The same with the media. But the more I look at the media and the more I look at the real estate, my income is limited by those two companies, really to $35,000 to $40,000 a month, and that wasn't what I'm wanting, and that's not what I'm capable of. So I had to take a step back from that, focus entirely on becoming the small business surgeon.
Yeah, I have a very similar pivot point, and I felt the same way. I was like, I'm bringing in 150, 200 personally through my business, and it's a 7-figure business. So I got to tout that, you know what I mean?
It looks great on paper.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, man, I have to move my personal needle. I have to basically make another $1 million, to really move it, because of the not razor thin margins, but they were thinner margins, right? And then there was so much liability. And
Yep.
then, I came to a core value crisis, where I realized my business wasn't operating on the core values that I now operated on. So that gap was getting further and further. And so I had to make that choice where it's like, hey, go full-time consulting. It's a way higher margin business. But I won't have that ego, you know, ego provider of having a 7-figure business anymore. You know what I'm saying? Which is
Yeah, I
the
do.
backstop.
But the older I get, the less I care about that.
That's what I got to eventually. I was just
You
like,
know,
fuck it. I don't care if I know I can make $500,000 next year just doing straight consulting, rev share, all the other deals.
Same.
And so I was like,
and it's weird because guys like us do. We've always got the multiple streams. We've got so many irons in the fire, and yet for me to make the most money with the least amount of effort, what I have to do is shut down all those things that are paying me a couple of $100,000 a year, and it's terrifying to make that leap. And yet, I mean, it's been hugely gratifying since I left. It's only been like 3 months since I took it and went absolute full time doing this, and like cash on cash in my pocket, not revenues, not at all. So let's not get that, but cash on cash in my pocket. I've put more money in my pocket in the last 3 months than I did in the last 2 years, like in my pocket. And it's just from shifting the focus to where can I have the most impact, both with my audience and with my pocketbook. And unfortunately, for me, I've had teams. I think 19 was the biggest team I ever had, and that just wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. I'm much better off at helping business owners go through the mistakes that I've already made. That seems to be what my absolute calling is. And the small business surgeon, it came about very, there was a nefarious intent behind it. And if I can, I'll walk you through it, because you may have been at the event. It was an Apex event in December of 2020. It was my first in-person event. We'd all been shut down for COVID. And
I joined about 5 months after that.
Joined about after that? Okay, so
MDM.
Oh, right on. That April. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
But Jessica, her last name evades me. The pink hair. No, the other one.
Oh,
yeah, that one you can't remember her last name either. She's an insurance agent out of Kansas City, and she is wonderful in the referrals game. And so I asked her, I said, and she had just done a presentation. I put my hand up. I said, how can I play this game myself? And she said, start a group in your hometown on a subject that you're interested in. Doesn't matter what. So I'm interested in small business. So I started that day. I started a group of business owners. And by the end of the class, or the end of the day there, I'd had 40 people join my group. And the next day, there was over 100 people in it. I'm like, wow. Nice. And my intent was to build that group to sell the business owners real estate. And so after the group started going, I hosted events, and then I invited people to meet me for coffee, and they'd come sit with me one-on-one. And the goal was to turn them into real estate clients. And what happened was every single one of those business owners opened up to me off the record. We had the coffee, we had the sit down, and they started telling me about where they were struggling and how bad things were and how crazy life had got after COVID and not knowing what to do now and not knowing what to do next. And it was just suddenly like, well, have you tried this? And what about that? And I had all this real world experience that I could give to people. And it wasn't until I was sitting in Zach Babcock's mastermind a couple of months later, which is where we formulated the small business surgeon idea, that it was Thomas Keenan and Patrick Bolaños both. They're like, you're a coach, whether you want to be or not, you're a coach. And this was over 2 years ago now, sitting there. And the amount of imposter syndrome behind that, well, who am I to coach anybody?
Right.
But then when you realize and you start talking to business owners, you realize that most of what you see on the internet is filtered, and it's there because they want you to see it. And the real stuff going on behind the scenes is a lot more tumultuous. And it's a lot more challenging, and more importantly, man, it's all really, really similar challenges that can be fixed by putting, one of 6 or 7 different things in place. And normally they're lacking a few more than that. But like, there's so many basics that, again, I've already covered. I'm like, why am I not out here helping these people? And so that's where it came from, man. Completely no intention of being a coach.
Organic.
No intention.
That's where it should come from. You should have people coming up to you saying, hey, you need to be a consultant, or hey, you need to be a coach, or hey, you need to do this full time.
That's
when you know.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was an extremely difficult pivot shutting down the Texas Media Foundry. Extreme, because we did blow up after MDM. Like it was great. Like it was really great. And we had a major client pull out and pull funding on a project. And it put me at a crossroads. I can either dig in and go get more clients, or I can actually pivot and go just get clients for myself, for my own brand. And man, it's been night and day switch now that I'm full-time consulting.
Yeah, I remember that first conversation we had. Your voice was just so much lighter. That first conversation we really went through all of it kind of at the same time, the end of last year. Where we were just questioning life. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why I made sure and called you, because I saw it going down on yours. I'm like, shit, me and Doug are walking like the same path, because it's very hard to give up something that works and have faith in something that only it only exists in your head. Like you haven't really brought it to fruition. And even with 2 years of podcasts and God knows how many other things I've been doing, it still feels as though there's imposter syndrome there. It still does. And then
100%.
Dude, there was a Facebook memory popped up the other day. And Nina, she does a wonderful job of going back and tagging me in things I'd forgotten about. And it was a ring the bell moment. We'd taken a client from $100,000 months, and he posted $993,000 in sales revenue that month. And I couldn't have been happier. And all it was getting into his head and adjusting where his focus was, and adjusting the clientele he was targeting. And we changed him from a high turnover, high risk clientele to a low turnover, long contract, low risk clientele. And then I built him out a top 30 of people to go and get. And then we went over the sales scripts, and I helped him through the Zoom calls, and then boom, just like that, his entire model shifted. And I'm like, why don't I just do that for everybody?
Just run the play.
I mean, that's what it is. Like, I believe only about 10% of business is unique, and that's your unique skill set that you're selling. That's the bit in the middle. That's the solar bit. That's the roofing bit. That's the lawyer bit, or the doctor bit, or whatever. And 90% of it, it's the same stuff over and over. It's having the systems in place to do that for you. Sales teams being among the most important.
No, it happens. I have the same conversation with all my clients. You know what I mean? And it's like, I have to act surprised every time, just so they understand how important it is. So when I ask them, hey, do you have a scope of work or a script in place for your salespeople? And they're like, no, I have to be like, to go through all the motions of, are you crazy? You know what I mean? I have to go through it all. It's like, I knew you were going to say that. That's why you're coming to me in the first place. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you think it's because your product, or you don't have enough leads, or you don't have the right people in place. But as you bring in people into a broken system, and become broken. You know what I mean? Like,
and I learned that in car sales, but it was heavily reinforced for me in real estate, because when I built the real estate team, what I was doing was all the front end work. I was the rainmaker. So going out, being in the videos. I brought the leads in, and I had to sign the leads, and I'm not getting anywhere near the appointment setting rates that I'm wanting. I'm not getting anywhere near the closing rates, and these leads they're not inexpensive to generate. I'm like, well, what's going on? And it was the fact that even though I'd handed out scripts that I got from Tom Ferry and rewritten in my own style and everything else, like, they didn't want to call the leads. They didn't want to engage with the leads. And there was no accountability on my part. I'm just giving them scripts and expecting them to call. And so one of the things I missed in having sales teams is the training and the expectations there, and making sure there's milestones and making sure there's like markers to where I know this is done. I know this guy's done this, and if not, I could step in and correct it. But like as a business owner, dude, I ignored that for so long. So long, or not just ignored it. Maybe was ignorant of it is probably the better way to do it. I didn't know there was a better way. I'm thinking if I give you a script and some leads, you should be selling stuff, and clearly that's not really the solution. Were it only that simple, man.
No, one of my early managers used to always say, and he obviously got it from somewhere else, but inspect what you expect.
Yeah.
When you're not inspecting what you expect, then things are going to go by the wayside like that. Okay. So more to your kind of what you're focused on right now, which is basically what you said was building digital infrastructures for offline businesses to bring them to an online world.
Yes.
And so my first question is, what businesses are offline these days? And I'm sure I'd be surprised.
You'd be shocked. Well, it's not that, dude. It's that everybody knows they have to be online, but nobody knows how all the bits work together is the problem.
Okay.
And so you might have a little bit of Google My Business that somebody did 3 months ago, and then you've got a Facebook page, but you don't know how it all integrates together. And I ran into these problems with the Texas Media Foundry, with my video clients. And when you come to me and you buy a video, like, you don't want a video, you want more exposure in the marketplace, which lead into more calls, more leads, more sales, more revenue, more money, right? But you're not coming to me for a video. And what would happen is I would make these beautiful videos. You've seen some of them.
Yeah.
And we'd give them to clients, and the client would get like 4 views on it. And I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing wrong? Let me take a look. And they have no CRM set up, or if they do have a CRM set up, it doesn't integrate with their social media. They might have a few posts on a Facebook page. They've no main character. They've no main spokesperson for their business. And there's no cohesive strategy sticking it all together. There's no way that they get inquiries from Facebook into their CRM. There's no way that they get inquiries from Google into their CRM. And these people are wanting to run like ad campaigns. Oh, maybe we could do an ad. And what they do is they boost a post and they wonder why it doesn't work. And, there's so much goes into understanding your target market, understanding your audience, knowing what to post, knowing when to post it. And then each individual ad campaign should have its own landing page. And you see people blowing money, sending traffic to a website that's just hello, this is my company website. There's no sales page on the website. There's no call to action on the website. And like, so many bits missing. So yes, everybody's online, but at most, like, a company will have a 5-page website, but there's no call to action. There's no clear message. It's not a sales page. So what I do is I come in and help clean it all up, and I show them what ties to where. And like, we'll use tools to where they can post to multiple social media accounts at once. I'll help them. I show them places to find topics for their audience. I mean, I help them define their audience. I help them set their goals. I help them put 90-day quarters together to where they can, just get their little anchor points in, set their goals, and they run really hard for 90 days. And then you take a few weeks and you slow down, you have an assessment, and then you run really hard again for the next 90 days. I mean, and the biggest problem that I've faced with all of my clients is the drop off, is getting them to do the work. We get a couple of early wins in, and then this is a grind, dude. Like, owning a business and making a footprint on the internet, it's consistency over time. And the likable, attractive character method, where you build a foundation organically, like, because a lot of companies, they want to buy ads, but if you buy ads and you don't have anywhere to send the traffic, you're just wasting money.
Right.
So it comes in stages. We have to get the foundation built first to where there's somewhere for the people that see your stuff to go, because people think of internet traffic as clicks. And you have to stop thinking of it as clicks and start thinking of it as eyeballs.
Yeah.
This is a user. This is a person. What am I showing this person right now in this ad? And what incentive am I giving them to move to my landing page? And then what am I selling them on my landing page? What am I giving in exchange for the information on their landing page? What's going to trigger them into my ecosystem? And these are all questions these guys they haven't asked. And they've got a Facebook page and they boost a post and they wonder why they're not making money. And a lot of times there's not really much budget for ad spend. I mean, if you give me 50 grand and say, let's go build some funnels and run some ads, that's a whole different story than, well, I'm pretty broke, I need to get this going organically. It's a whole other method. And so, I get both, but honestly, a lot of guys that call me are throwing a Hail Mary. Yeah. And so I have to start them off and build a foundation and explain to them that, look, you got to be all in on this for the next 90 days. This is what we need to do. And what I found was they come in and they'd be all gung ho, and then 2 or 3 weeks later they fall off, and they keep falling off, and they try get back on and they fall off again. They try get back on. Well, this isn't working. I'm like, all right, let's go back over your posts. And you know the thing, you've got to do 2 posts to Facebook every day, 1 Facebook Live, 1 post to a Facebook group. You've got to add 5 people to your group. You've got to add 5 people to your CRM. You've got to do these fundamentals every day. And I go back and check the work, and it's all done from days 1 through 4. And then on day 5, there's a couple of things missing. And by day 13, nothing's getting done. And so what my focus is now is, I don't know whether you see any of my posts or not, is, I'm taking from Ryan Stewman here, where he says to, be the example. Right. And what I've done is put myself on the Small Business Surgeon program, and I'm on day 16 of it. And for the next 90 days, I'm logging everything I do, and I'm going all out with intense focus to hit a specific set of goals, hence this podcast. But very cool. If I do that, then I can turn around to my clients, because I've done it multiple times, especially since joining Apex. It's a phenomenal thing, is building your machine. But most people, they don't get past that first 2 weeks. And so if I can go lead from the front and show them, here's what going for a walk every day for 90 days does. Here's what focusing on these specific areas for 90 days does. If I can show them that and lead from the front, I feel though they'd be more inclined to do it and to join in. And what it does for me and for my brand is expands me past business owners. Like it allows me to talk to a broader audience, in that anybody that wants to do something, that has a item on their dream list, okay? Anybody can do it in the next 90 days. If you want to be a better guitar player, if you commit to 20 minutes a day for the next 90 days, will you be a better guitar player? Absolutely. If you want to be in better shape, if you commit, yes, you will. And that way, there's no way to lose. You commit to it for 90 days, and you journal for 90 days, and you write down what went right, you write down what went wrong, and you're honest with yourself. And I think that's a lot easier for people to digest than me come in and say, look, this is a 6 to 9 month process. But if we break it down into 3 focused 90-day sessions, I think they get a lot better results. But again, that's just something that I'm experimenting with. And what harm's it going to do me going all in on my own brand for 90 days? None at all. And you see the levels of exposure and engagement and everything that we're getting now, even with Facebook juggling that algorithm at us last week, which
they're killing us.
Yeah,
golly. I knew it wasn't just me. No, and like I posted that in Entourage, and everybody gave me a hard time about vanity metrics and all this, and it's like, that's my business.
That's the point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have
to. I don't have guys knocking on doors anymore. I need eyeballs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't give you a hard time. I was just like, but it's the same. It's the same for me. What advice I give you is there's more platforms than Facebook out there.
Yeah.
And we've
and it's 100% what we're doing. We're at the same mindset right now, because like I'm getting more engaged on Twitter. I'm getting more engaged on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
and,
dude.
You've been on TikTok forever. Yeah, YouTube
Shorts for me, dude. Sometimes I'll post a short and it'll get 2 views, and the next day I'll post one and it'll get 20,000 views, and I've got no idea how that works because I'm like, they're the same thing. But you know, the YouTube's been really good, and then just more TikTok and Clapper has started to kind of emerge as a decent base as well for traffic.
Really?
But like,
Never even heard of that. What is that?
It's another TikTok by right-wing guys. It's got less censorship on it. The problem with Clapper is it's got less censorship, so that means it's got more risque shit on it too. So I've noticed it gets bogged down a little bit sometimes with the girl stuff. But you know, it's one of them learning algorithms, so you just keep clicking off it and it won't come back. But we are. So I use a software suite now to where I've got all my accounts built in, and I just upload to the software suite, and I had a guy last week and he didn't work out. You know how VAs go. And so I'm doing it myself still, but the goal is to have a social media manager here within the next week and a half. But man, having that software platform to where all of my socials are connected to it, I can respond in the chats to it, and it's not Facebook messengers me. Everything else isn't me. It's all managed by a team because there's just so many places you have to be relevant. And the fact that any single one of these platforms can switch off your traffic and your business at any given point, I mean, you would be it would be foolish to be focused on just one platform. And so that's why I spread everything out. And it's more engagement, it's more exposure, but it's ultimately it's less risk, because if Facebook went away tomorrow, it would suck, but I'd be all right. I'd still have traffic sources, and I'd still have reach, and I'd still have influence,
Yeah, it's a problem, especially in our line of work, because I can tell you right now, all of my leads, except for one that I closed, all of them except for one came from Instagram. The rest of them come from Facebook.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, and probably 60 to 70% come from either Apex or RBO, which are the masterminds.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like I know there's a problem, but at the same time, I'm still trying to maintain that business just to maintain positive cash flow. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to lean back into it and then jump out of it for a little bit, and then you got to lean back into it. It's like playing that game.
Well, luckily I've got 2.5 years of podcasts that are all recorded and all videoed and all edited. And so I'm having somebody pull out 4 to 5 sections from each show, 4 or 5 sets of quotes. And I've got content for the next year just in the backlog of stuff. So I'm hoping, again, as part of my 90 days of pure focus on this brand, I'm hoping that I've got the right social media manager bedded in. And, we're teed up to release 3 videos a day, 5 days a week. That's the objective here. And hopefully that does for me what it does for the clients. I mean, man, I did it with the real estate company, and then I went and did it with the media company. And so, now I'm just doing it with the consulting company.
We literally had a meeting this morning at 10 o'clock where I laid out the plan to do exactly that. It's crazy how much in alignment we are right now. And I got a little pushback from my social media director because she was worried about the, so what we're doing is, obviously Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the episodes release because we do 3 a week. Right. And so those episodes are reels, they're TikToks, or no, they're not TikToks. They're reels, and then they're posted to my main feeds. Right. And then I'm doing 2 more, which is one is consulting and one is podcast. So that's 3 a day, essentially. And she's worried about them pulling from each other too much. Like all we're going to do is spread out the engagement we're already getting.
I don't think so. And what I would do is use, how many videos you putting out, did you say? 3
just on my personal page.
Okay.
It could be more in the groups and everything. You know what I mean?
Right.
According to our schedule.
Right. What I do is I'd have the same 2 or 3 hashtags on each of them, and then I'd have 27 different hashtags so you got you would carry, let's say, small business and sales teams and Doug Mitchell as your 3 main hashtags, and then if you're doing 30 hashtags per video, get a set of 27, another set of 27, another set of 27, and like use different keywords, different hashtags. That's how I do it. She has a valid point, but again, you know, you're not gonna turn people off. People just scroll past it. If they want to watch it, they'll watch you.
That was my thought too.
What
like,
what
oh
happens?
no, we're putting out too much content.
Well,
like, I don't think anybody's ever really said that. Yeah.
No, what happens when they scroll past you is it still registers that you exist. And eventually they're like, man, I see this Doug dude everywhere. And they're either going to switch you off, or they're going to remember who you are and they're going to refer business to you. Like, oh, that's Doug. He has that sales team thing. You know,
so they're helping me by switching me off, because that's eyeballs that don't want me anyways.
Yes.
Getting rid of them. Yeah.
And for the longest time, I've been worried about dropping too much content and oversaturating stuff. But what I've learned is that this social media is a content eating monster. And the minute you feed it, it's satisfied for a second. You get your little dopamine hit, you get your little red squares coming up, and then you got to feed it again and feed it again. And it doesn't matter how much you feed it. If you feed it once a week, guess what? It's going to be hungry next week. If you feed it 5 times a day, it's going to be hungry tomorrow. It's constantly hungry. And so, yeah, I wouldn't worry about oversaturating. I would just change out the hashtags you're using.
Yeah, that's going to be a reel that we put out on this episode, and then I'm also going to send that to Nika as well. She's my social media director, and I've been incredibly blessed, and I know what you're going through right now. Actually, I don't, because by the time I started to lean into social media, I already had Nika, which was like not fair. So I actually sourced her through XX Digital, which is Jose Sanchez and Brandon. I always forget his last name, starts with an H, but she was their customer service person for like a year before that, and then she had some medical issues, and so when I went to them, I was like, hey, I need a VA for social media. They were like, oh, we already have her, like she's coming back now, and you can absolutely have her. And then they tried to like steal her back from me like a year later, and I'm like, nope, she ain't going nowhere. But yeah, I got very lucky starting out, and then the rest I sourced through Sphere Rocket. And that took some time and took some going through some people, but now I have a team of 3 VAs, and then of course my producer and media manager Ryan, and it's just a killer team, and they can scale. They've got room to grow, all of them. So
that's what you need, man. It's finding those right linchpins. It's finding the who's that really can open up the game. It's finding those right guys.
Man, so we jumped around a little bit here. It's funny because as you were talking, you were literally answering the questions that I had.
Oh, my bad.
One of the things that no, you're good. One of the things I want to point out is what you talked about, because you jumped from business to personal, right? And one of the things you talked about was breaking it up by quarter. And so many people have a goal. They start with a New Year's resolution, or they have a goal for their business for next year, and they have that annual goal. And like the space between the micro, what's happening, and then the macro of the annual, you know what I mean? It just seems so far sometimes, Yeah. And we know, I feel like maybe we're exposed to it all the time, so I'm a little biased here, but I feel like people are making that gap now. They're like, oh, I need to break it up into quarters, break those quarters up into weekly, track the data weekly, and then create issues. This is the EOS model, right? Create issues whenever I'm not hitting my weekly. And but on the personal side, I don't think we've made that leap yet. And that's kind of what you were talking to. You've been sober for 6 years now, and you've lost 60 pounds in that time, maybe more now, and
I got in that comfort zone. So now my weight goes up by 10 pounds, down by 15.
Same.
I'm comfortable where I'm at. I mean, I'm 6'4" and 225. So I'm comfortable, but there's room for improvement. I'm still trying to improve,
Absolutely. And so was there a spark, or was there this like wall that you hit and you're like, hey, something's got to change 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Or was it more gradual?
Yeah, no, there's always like so I could not stop drinking because I didn't want to stop drinking. And so it wouldn't have mattered if you'd have, drugged me through the desert and beat me with a bat. I wouldn't have stopped because I didn't want to stop. And what got me to stop was a couple of things. I made every mistake that entrepreneurs make when they get paid, like all of them. You name the mistake, I made it, including drinking too much. And it cost me a multi-million-dollar company. I was asleep at the wheel. I wasn't asleep. I was drunk at the wheel. And that's just what happened. And so I had lost that company, and it was all happening at the same time. So I'd booked tickets to England to my sister's wedding, and this was 2017, and the company had collapsed like the week before, and whatever, man, it was a wedding, and we were going to go drink. And looking back on that 2 weeks, there's not a single picture of me out there without glassy eyes from 2 entire weeks. And a wedding's a good excuse, but come on, man.
Yeah.
And so with my world collapsing around me, we were leaving to come back to America, and my mom, she was 63 at the time, she stood on her tiptoes, and she whispered in my ear as I was leaving, she whispered, "Sort your fucking life out."
Wow.
And for that to come from a little old lady,
that's a spark. That's the spark.
Yeah. And the fuel, that was the spark. And the fuel had come from watching a very close friend of mine's partner in that February. She had been one of the gang, and she'd been one of the crowd, and she had drank with us and done shots with us and been at the table with us. And she went through liver failure and turning yellow and getting bloated and died. And I was the friend that went to the apartment and helped turn her and helped wipe her down and end of life stuff. And, you add that with the company collapsing and your mom telling you to sort your fucking life out. And you're just like, you know what? Maybe I won't have a drink today. And I'm not some like superhero dude. I had just decided that I didn't want to die. Like Mel did, because that looked awful. It was just awful. I did not want to die, and more importantly, I didn't want to disappoint my mom anymore. And so it was a case of, you know what, I'm not going to have a drink today. And that turned into 2 days, and that turned into 3 days, and then the fucking withdrawal symptoms started. And I'm halfway through this withdrawal, and I'm like, man, I'm just going to get a drink. And I started realizing, like, if you don't go through this now, you're going to have to go through it again and again and
You're
again.
halfway through already.
You quit, so you might as well stay. And then, after that, am I going to have a drink today? Not today. And I made it 2 weeks. I made it 3 weeks. And then I signed up for this little app to help me keep track and hold me accountable. And the time just passed. And I've drank a couple of times since then, very intentionally. I always said I have a drink when I've got something to celebrate, not when I'm drinking because I'm depressed or whatever it was.
Right.
And, both times I've been sick afterwards, like violently, like awful sick, and not getting drunk. I'm talking about having a drink.
Right.
And I think the last time I had one was in 2019 because I was so sick after it. I'm like, well, I guess that's that then. And so I don't want to appear like a superhero for staying sober. It's I don't want to die. I've got loads of shit I want to do. I don't want to disappoint my mom, and I don't want to feel like death. And
your body's literally rejecting it now. It's like, we're done with this.
Yeah. And so, but I know being sober is something that a lot of business owners struggle with, is because they use it to mitigate the stress. To cope with the stress. But ultimately, I was just killing myself slowly. And, I had some weight issues and some chest pain issues, and there's only so long you can kid yourself for as you get into your 40s, and you're like, this has to get taken care of. And I don't want to be morbid, but I'm not ready to die, and I certainly don't want to go out with liver failure, because that looked awful, and I certainly don't want to disappoint my mom. And so that was the catalyst. It was that being 37 years old and being a drunk disappointment. Try living with that, and that's what made me do it, man. But that's what I do now. Like, I listen and I sit and I listen to guys that are struggling with this, and I help them through it. And it's not I'm never gonna have a drink. It's not I'm giving up alcohol forever, this is evil. It's you know what? I'm just not gonna have a drink today. I'm still going to go see my friends. I'm still going to be a normal person. I'm going to go hang out. I'm going to have a Diet Coke, or I'm going to have a water, or I'm going to have a Topo Chico and lime, or whatever the hell it is. Like, too many people quit drinking and they just like, and they cut off their friend groups and they cut off their support and they cut off everything because we spend so much time as social creatures consuming alcohol.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that is something I don't openly advertise that as part of the small business surgeon program. It's just always something that comes up is diet. It's are they eating like a dumpster fire? Because so many of us stress eat, myself included.
Absolutely.
And alcohol. And you cannot build a better business until you've built a better entrepreneur. And so they kind of just go hand in glove, dude. It just works together, you know.
Man, I'm gonna let that sit for a little bit. You can't build a better business until you build a better entrepreneur. I love that. I love it 100%. You know what's crazy is, since we joined Apex, we've been pressured to do all of this, 75 hard, drink less, become a better version of ourselves, and it's really beautiful how it has. I mean, at least for me, because I never had any of these thoughts before joining Apex, right? Alcohol was, especially after COVID, like alcohol was just like part of my life, And
Did you finish 75 hard?
Not recently,
but you
finished it last year. Yeah, I finished it before. Yeah,
dude, it took me nine tries. My very first try, I got injured like 47 days in.
Oh man.
Second time, I made it to like 8 days. The third time, I was injured at 27 days, and it took me 9 times. But boy, finishing it, like I can't speak enough about finishing it and what it does for your tenacity. Like it will engage you. And man, I was in really good shape when I finished it. I'm about 10 pounds heavier than where I was when I finished it. But like, it's 2 workouts a day is a lot.
Yeah, it is. And for me, it was, anyways. It took me 7 times. And the only reason I finished it the 7th time is because my wife did it with me. And so that was a whole different journey, you know, and we both did it through COVID.
It's funny because I think the reason I finished was because Nina did it with me, and I didn't want to be the one that failed, and neither did she. We both pushed each other to do it, and it is easier when you've got that accountability because it's and
then you literally take a walk every evening. You know what I'm saying? And it helps your relationship, brings you closer together, And so that it becomes something I look forward to versus something that's like, what am I going to do for my second workout? And I already did those muscle groups and I don't feel like running. So what else can I do here? It's like, just take a walk.
Take a walk, put in a podcast, do 2 things at once. And that's what I did. And I do walk every day now, and I do resistance bands every day because my age, you get that joint stuff coming in. But I don't count that as 2 workouts. It's a 45-minute walk and about 15 minutes of resistance bands. So I only count it as 1.
Yeah.
So
what's next for the small business surgeon?
Well, it is a huge amount of focus on the next 90 days. So that is what I'm going to turn into my product, because as you certainly well know, there's only so much consulting you can do. And every single business is a completely unique situation. So there's no one size fits all digital product that I can sell over and over. And I believe you've recently gone through this or are going through it right this minute. And my focus for the longest time has been impact over money. Ever since I learned that abundance in money was the byproduct of abundance in impact, I've just been focused on the impact, and the money seems to just show up. And so I thought, how can I have the most impact on my clients, and how can I have the most impact on my network? It is breaking that stuff down into those 90 days and showing that if you write out your goals, if you take the time to decide where you want to go, and then every single day we journal and we take notes and we measure what we've done. And I know it's tedious. I know it is. And people don't want to do it. And so my goal is to show them like what's going on in my life over 90 days and how much impact I can have and how much stuff I can get done in 90 days. And with my boys and with everything else I got going on in life, like this is how I'm moving the needle forward, and turn that into a 90-day program that I essentially give away. And then obviously the upsell comes is if you need help, if you want to join a group, if you want one-on-one, there are upsells there. But I can have the most impact by giving away this entire program. And I've got some notebooks over here that I'm journaling in every day, and we're going to go and take the things from there and get those books printed. And so there'll be a little notebook for sale, and maybe a water bottle or a T-shirt or something. But the goal is to really dial in a 90-day program that everybody can do and hold each other accountable. Because I see the biggest breakdown isn't with the intention of these guys. The biggest breakdown in all of my clients is in the execution of basic daily tasks. And they just don't execute consistently. And so the best way I can think of to get everybody on the same page is to lead from the front, go be the example, and show everybody just what's possible with 90 days of focus and commitment.
Well, I think that resonates with a lot of people listening, and me personally. I mean, I think that's your hook. It's like, do you struggle executing small daily tasks?
Mm-hmm.
Question mark. You know what I mean? Like that's it. Because we do, like, you know, when I think about what have I done consistently for the past 90 days? G code.
Yeah.
Prayed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do that.
And, you know, I could probably throw in working out in there, but maybe like 60 of the 90.
Yeah,
maybe
but
65, but that's only because of 75 hard, you know?
Right. But the point is the point where I go is that when people fail, they stop. When people fall off the wagon, they're off it. And I want people to understand that you can lose some days. You can lose 3 times in a day, but if you've got 3 losses and 7 wins, did you win the day or not? You won the day. Like if you did 1 workout and not 2, you still got a workout in. Like you get 1 win and 1 L. Like, and what I'm trying to convey is, look, we're committing for 90 days. It doesn't matter if you screw up on day 13. The horse is still there. Climb back on the horse. Let's go again. We got another, 75 days to get this right. Let's go again. And the goal is not to win every day for 90 days. Like, how few teams win championships with perfect seasons?
Yeah.
Like, every champion slips. Everybody takes a loss, right? It's the fact that you can then pick up this notebook and flick back. When you lose on day 12, you can flick back and see 11 days of wins, and you go, you know what? Today was a rough one. You know, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to meditate a little bit. I'm going to write down some notes, and I'm going to crush it tomorrow. Yeah. And that way, it's not all or nothing. It's not, oh, I had a drink. I guess I'll just go back to drinking. It's not, I skipped a workout. I guess I'll eat those cookies. It's like, hey, on Tuesday, I skipped a workout and I ate some cookies. Yeah, I'm going to try harder tomorrow. I can only eat cookies on Saturdays, or whatever it is that you set for yourself, whatever targets you set. I've got a place in my notes that says not only where did I win today, right? And I've got 3 places for wins that you've got to write down at least 3 wins. Because remember, it's the end of the day. We're trying to focus on being grateful and knocking stuff off the list. Where did I win? What can I celebrate? I've also got where did I lose? Because I've got 1 spot. You can write down 1 thing that you didn't do to the extent of your capabilities that you want to work on tomorrow. And what will I improve upon tomorrow? Those are my 3 questions at the end of my day, followed up with, did I win today? So when you add all your marks up, was today a win or not? And by having that, and you know, I borrowed heavily from G Code, and I borrowed heavily from 75 Hard. And I believe in both these programs. I think they're both life-changing programs, absolutely. And a huge shout out to Ryan Stuman for turning us both onto G Code, and to Andy Frisella for 75 Hard. I mean, I would not be where I'm at without those guys. I do realize, however, that 75 Hard is not for everybody. Like undergoing that mental transformation.
It's like you just said, like when you fail 75 Hard, the likelihood that you're going to start it again like the next day is like 5% maybe. You know what I mean? Because it's so extreme. But you know, and you know, I just put in 20 days. I don't feel like putting in another 75. It'd be different if I didn't fail and I only had to do 50 more or whatever.
But you know, winning consistently is habit, and it's something that's built off of learning to fail. And
Yep.
so if we address our failures and say, all right, what wins did I have? Now, what losses did I have? Where did this go wrong today? By bringing that to the front, going, okay, well, that went wrong. Let's try this tomorrow. What will I improve upon tomorrow? And those are the questions I want you to ask, whether you have a drink or not, whether you skip a workout, whether you forgot to reach out to people and work on your relationships. It doesn't matter. What matters is you acknowledge it. You go, okay, that needs work tomorrow, and then we get on that again, and we reset and we go. And it's 90 days of focusing on moving you towards your goals, and how close to your goals can you get in 90 days. And then we take a couple of weeks, and we sit down and we reassess and we set new targets and we go again, and that's it. And
I love it.
I think that is the best way to bridge the gap with a lot of entrepreneurs that just kind of aren't ready yet, because getting into the consulting and the fixing the business stuff that I do is so dependent on fixing the entrepreneur and having somebody that's committed. Because, dude, a lot of business is boring, repetitive tasks over and over and over. Like, it's just the game. And if they can't be consistent, there's no way they're going to come out of this as successes. And it's why so many businesses fail. It's just why so many things like that stop. So my goal is to take everybody and get them through the next 90 days. And if that's learning Spanish, so be it. What did you do today to move your Spanish goals forward? How many Spanish people did you talk to? If it's overcoming anxiety, how many strangers in the supermarket are you going to go talk to today? Whatever it is, you can fix in 90 days of focus. And so that's really my goal, is to show people just what can be done and what can be accomplished with a little bit of focus and a lot of effort.
I love it, brother. I love it. If you guys are hearing this and this is something you're interested in, or you just want to follow Sam, he's at Small Business Surgeon on Instagram. And then also you can go to his website at followsam.live. That's
yes, sir.
.live. So I've got one more question for you. I know we're way over time, so I want to make sure that we're good.
We're good. We're good.
Okay. And this one's a little deeper, but very much what you've been talking about in terms of impact. So,
okay,
what does legacy mean to you, and what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Oh man, I kept thinking the longest time, all I really want on my tombstone is like, yeah, you know what? He was a good dude. He tried his best.
Sorry, I hear you say that, and I know immediately that's not you.
But legacy that's a difficult one to pin down. I was I lost a friend a few weeks ago, and I was at her memorial.
Sorry.
Life goes on. I was at her memorial the other day, and the legacy she left was the hundreds of people that showed up with great stories about her and the impact she'd had on people's lives. And so such a fitting legacy. So it can mean different things to different people. But when I turned 40 and got a few more gray hairs, it stopped becoming about me, and it started becoming about the foundation I built for my kids and then other people's kids coming after us. And what kind of future are we leaving for them? So my legacy is, at least I plan on it being, very focused in education, a different style of education. I think there's far too much emphasis placed on being educated and not actually on the practical lessons of being alive. And I'm a huge component in continuing education. So I want to give as much as possible and have as much positive impact on other people's lives so they don't have to make the same mistakes I do. So I am hoping that I get to live a long enough and prosperous life to where my legacy is a children's charity that is self-funding and self-sustaining and can go and impact the lives of foster kids and unwanted children, and give them a safe space to live and to learn and to grow and to have a curriculum that is practical and helpful. I think that we could do a lot of good as a collective working towards a better future for our kids. And I also want you to realize that there's no they. When we say, oh, they should do something about education, or they should do something about politics, or they should do something about, the state of the roads, there's no they. We are in our 30s and in our 40s. There's just us. There's just us. If we want to make a change, we have to go do it, and we have to build that. And that's why I set aside a little bit of my income every month, and it's why I'm saving money to put together a nonprofit. That's really, it's really a calling to me. And if I'm blessed enough to get to live a long and prosperous life, then I want to build a big and impactful charity, and that would be my ultimate goal. So that's what I'm hoping for. But man, as long as my tombstone says, he was a good dude and we all loved him, then I'll be okay.
I can appreciate that. I really can, and I understand that. But it's so easy to do that, and you have not taken the easy route, brother. You have not. You know what I'm saying? And
don't tempt me.
In order to fulfill that legacy, and I want to point this out. And it's not going to sound pretty or motivational, but you need to become filthy fucking rich.
That's the plan.
If you want to fulfill that legacy, you have to. That's something that has to happen. This whole idea of, oh, well, if I build a little bit of it, then other people will jump on board. You can't have that game plan.
I got to lead from the front.
Yeah.
The goal, honestly, the goal is to get filthy rich and then give it all away. Like, that's it. Like, I want to make as much money as possible so I can have as much impact as possible, and then I'm out. Peace. Yeah. It's a short life, dude. And
this is the response to everybody that says money isn't everything. You know what I'm saying? This is that response, right? Yes, you want your tomb, like, you'll be okay if your tombstone reads that, but there's about 95% of the rest of you that's like, hey, I want to have this impact.
Yeah,
I want to get filthy fucking rich so I can impact some kids' lives, and not just like, oh, they get some shoes or they get some clothes or something like. No, like I want to provide a place for them to stay, to live, to grow, to learn. You know what I mean?
Well, without going too deep into it and too far off the rails, I firmly believe that a lot of institutionalized and religious backed childcare is borderline abuse, and so. I think that within our own government systems, it lends to abuse and abusers being prevalent. And what's the best way to target that? Without going in and setting fire to a bunch of people. It's to build your own systems. It's to build your own, build it better, and do the things that can be done for the benefit of these kids. And so there is no they, Doug. There's only us. And if I want to make it happen, that's what I have to do.
I love it, brother.
Just got to do the filthy rich bit first.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and then what'll happen is that moss will start collecting of the ball that you created that's rolling down the hill. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden, it won't be about your contribution anymore. It'll be about everybody else's, because they say, well, Sam's got this big ass boulder over here already rolling. Let's just throw our money on top of that. That's the plan. It'll go a lot further, But you have to lead by example and make that boulder run first. You can't just put 10 grand in a checking account and go, right, I've got a charity, everybody give money to me. You can't do that. There has to be an example. And I know that to feed and house and educate 30 kids, I already know it's going to cost about 700 grand a year. Like, I love that you've done the math already.
Oh yeah. I'm like, I've got a couple of people ready to sit on the board. And I've got a nonprofit attorney that's ready to help out. It's just, these things aren't cheap. And I've got to do the filthy rich bit first. But it's right at the top of my priority list. Right behind building the income and building the brands out for clients. I mean, I want this nonprofit. This is what I want to do. So,
I love it, brother. Thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us way more of your time than we originally agreed to. So
dude, thank you for having me, man. It's been great. I've got a slammed afternoon, but my 1 o'clock is just waiting for me. They can just wait, because
shit.
Okay. It's all good. It's all good. There's no fires, and so part of the best thing about living by the calendar is having a full one, but it doesn't. This was important, man. I wanted to stay around. So
no, I appreciate you so much, brother. And we've already dropped your handles and everything. So you can find those in the show notes as well. So immediately everybody go follow Sam at a minimum, and let's get his message out, because it needs to get out. I
appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, Doug. Thank you for having me on, man. And I'll see you in a few days. Yeah, we're gonna be up at MDM, right? All right,
sounds good, brother. Let's get building.
Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Building Great Sales Teams. We appreciate it. Be sure to execute on everything that you just heard, and let's get building. Before we sign off, we'd like to invite you to join our Brickyard community. Head on over to jointhebrickyard.com. Again, that's jointhebrickyard.com, or click the link in the description to find out more.